Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video we're going to use Photoshop to learn how to create shape and form. And what we're going to do first is we're going to go ahead and go to File. We're going to open a new one. We're going to go and get our 11 by 17 and we'll stick with our landscape format. Let's go ahead and open that up. Okay. Now I usually have a grid that opens up, but I'm going to go ahead and just delete that so it's going to be easier for us to follow. And what we're going to do in this video is we're going to combine all the elements to begin creating objects in Photoshop. So in my previous videos we learned to use paths to create stroke and fill, dodging and burning to create highlights and shadow, and lastly, to finish everything off, we use definition detail, which is basically bringing in stroke lines to sharpen or soften and add cut lines. So let's begin. So our primary tool today is going to be using the pen tool, because we're going to start creating a path. Now the path is going to be basically a shape, or it's going to define the shape that we're going to begin to create our form. So let's go ahead and begin by clicking with our left mouse. Okay, click, drag, click, drag, click, drag, click, and what I'm doing is when I'm dragging, I'm actually just kind of taking my button off the left mouse button and I'm just kind of gliding it over to where I want it to go. Okay, and when you return, look for the little loop. You can see the little loop come up, and that means we're going to close our shape. All right, now when I go over to my path menu, I'm going to go ahead and save my path. So remember to double click on the work path. Let's go ahead and call that main shape. Okay, and what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and we're going to transform or adjust these points so that we can begin to create our unique shape. So what I recommend doing is now toggling over to your, let me right click here to our path selection tool, and what I'm going to do is rather than picking the path selection, we're going to pick the one on the bottom, which is the direct selection. And when you click on any of those points, you can see what happens is they're going to be highlighted now. So what that means is you're going to be able to grab them and push and pull on them. Okay, see? So we're just going to just go ahead and push and pull on them until we kind of have something that we like. Now when I started this sketch, I didn't really have anything in mind. Luckily I do kind of have something that's kind of popping up in my head. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go ahead and take advantage of this opportunity to go through the pen tools. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to toggle over back to the pen tool, and I'm going to right click on the mouse and share with you that you can actually take some of these points and convert them. So you see how they're really hard points, and what we're going to do is we're going to toggle all the way over to the bottom where it says Convert Point Tool. We're going to select that, and when you hover and make contact, you'll see the icon pop up, and when you see that, go ahead and press down on your left button on your mouse and start to pull on that point. And you see what happens when you pull on it? You have handles. You get a couple of handles which you can actually move in and out depending on the character of the lines you want. Do you want it to kind of have a large radius? Do you want it to tighten up? Okay. And then what you do then is, if you're happy with it, click outside and go to another one. Okay. And do the same thing. You see what's going on here? You're starting to kind of push and pull, and you're starting to see that hard shape become very soft. Okay, we'll click outside and click another one. Again, you got to be right on it. Okay, now remember, you can twist the shape if you want. You see how I'm kind of twisting that? Kind of liking that. That could be kind of interesting. And let's click on this one, and we'll kind of pull that one out. We'll click on this one, make that a little tighter. We'll pick on this one. Okay, I may have to move this a little bit. Okay, so we'll come back to that, and we'll go ahead and let's see. Maybe we can push that out just a little bit. Okay. All right. Now, obviously, some of these points do have to have a little more adjustment. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my path selection tool, and maybe grab the direct selection tool again. And you see, you have to kind of grab that other tool to kind of get overall control on that node. Okay, because when you're on the convert selection tool, what happens is it'll always keep wanting to push and pull on it. You see, I can't do that when I'm on the direct selection tool. I can directly just select what's going on here. Okay. Right. Now, if you have too many of them, you can also get rid of a few. Okay, so let's say I want to get rid of this one here. Just go back to the pen tool, and let's go to the delete anchor point tool. Okay, it's just above the convert point tool. You see it has a minus sign, and as soon as you approach that point, you see a little minus sign pop up. Just go ahead and give it a click, and you see how it goes away. I kind of like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just kind of pull everything back together. Okay, and I think we've got a shape here that we can start to define and we can start to sketch up. Okay. So let's just kind of hold that shape. All right, that looks pretty good. All right, just got some flat spots on here, but I think it's not too bad. I think we'll be able to pull off a pretty nice demo with those points in place. Okay. All right. Now remember, every time you do rendering in Photoshop, you've got to reserve a layer. Okay. So we'll go to Layer, New. Oops, sorry, New. And let's go ahead and go Main Shape. Okay? Boom. All right. Now you guys all remember how to do that, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in a little bit so we can get a little closer look at our work area. Oh, maybe not too far. That's a little too close. All right. I'll pan over a little bit so we have right in the center of the screen. All right. So let's go back down. Let's go ahead and make sure that our main shape path is active. So let's go ahead and click the third button from the left. Okay, you see how it's active? We make sure we have layer 1 open. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and grab a relatively light gray so that we can work with that value. And we'll go ahead and right click. And in this case, we're going to go back and check the bucket, right? And we'll go ahead and fill it. All right. Now, I think I'm going to go a little lighter, so if you guys don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and notch back just a little lighter so you guys can see the contrast. There we go. Just a little bit lighter. All right. Good. Okay, let's go ahead and deselect. All right. And remember what we did next, right? We went ahead and we did the path, we did the stroke, well, we're not doing the stroke yet, but we're going to go ahead and skip the stroke. We'll come back to do the stroke later. With that, what I'm going to do is continue with the fill, but I want to now give the fill some shape and form. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and use our dodge and burn tools. All right. So let's go here and toggle down. You see this little grasping tool here where it says burn. We're going to begin with making shadows. So remember what we said about shadows when we're burning. You want to make sure you have a really soft brush, and you want to make sure that it's relatively large, so you have a large working area. So you don't have like big puddles of value. That's what I like to call them, because you know how when you're marker sketching you get puddles. Okay, so we're happy with that. So we're going to go ahead and think about our light source. I think I'm going to have my light source coming from the left side here. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just gently create a soft shadow. Okay, a little bit of value there. Okay, now if you're getting a lot of value dump, did you see that big value dump that happened there? You may want to go back into your exposure control right here at the top and pull it down a little bit. And what that's going to do, it's going to, oops, sorry. What that's going to do, it's going to kind of not let out so much value as you're stroking. Now all I'm doing is I'm pushing down on my mouse button and gliding it across that surface. You see how nice that is? It's almost kind of creating this kind of soft edge. Okay. And again, I'm very conscious of keeping this side a little bit lighter so I get a bit of a gradient. I concentrate a lot of my shadows over here on the right side. Okay. And then if I'm happy with that, I'll go ahead and go, well, let's now create some highlights. So I'm going to toggle back up to where my burn tool is and grab my dodge tool. And the same thing, I'm going to go ahead and double check the quality of that brush. Oops, sorry, on this side. And make sure it's soft and not too small. And let's see, I got my exposure 30. I think that might be pretty good. Oops, keep doing that. Sorry about that. I'm going to go ahead and maybe bring my brush down just a little bit. Sorry. Just a little bit. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's go ahead and, oops, it'll be a little bit too small. Okay, pardon me about that. Yeah, I'm going to pull down my exposure just a little bit more. There we go. Okay, see the highlight? Okay. It's really soft, and that's the way you want to approach a render like this, because you don't want to have like a big hot spot. You just want to kind of have a soft control over that, so you get just enough contrast in there to make sure that that reads nice and soft. Okay, and I think that's all you really need. All right. Now, if you're happy with that, let's go ahead and click out. Okay. And let's go ahead and open a new layer to encapsulate that. So what I'm going to do by doing that is it's going to give me an outline. So I'm going to stroke a path. So go ahead and hit layer and call this layer 2. And we'll just call this main form outline. Okay. All right. So now we've got a layer for that. Now let's go ahead and go back to path, and let's make sure it's on, which it is. And now we're on that layer, we're going to go ahead and stroke a line to surround that shape. All right. So let's go ahead and pick a color. I like black. That's going to show up the best. Let's use a brush, and let's take a look at that brush. Okay. Now remember what we said about hard lines. We want to make sure that pen's all the way over to the right, and maybe an 8-point line is going to be good enough. It's going to give us a nice strong line. Okay. So when you're ready, double check, make sure you're on a separate layer, okay, and your path is on. Go to the second button and go ahead and left click, and there's your black line, okay. And then when you're ready, go ahead and turn off your path so you can see what's going on here, all right. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and take that line, and we're going to maybe let's see if we can get some double duty out of that, all right. And here's what I'm talking about. I'm going to duplicate that line, and the way I duplicate it is I'm going to go ahead and go back to the last layer that I was on, which is the main form line, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to duplicate that layer, okay. But this time I'm going to rename it. I'm going to go main form, but this time I'm going to say cut line. All right, I'm going to save that. All right, now the line's there, right, but it's sitting on top of the old one, so let's go ahead and make sure it's selected. Use our selection tool. And we're going to go ahead and just move that second line up. Right? Do you see what's going on? Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to transform that line so that I can create some sort of a offset. Okay. So let's see what we can do here. We'll go to transform. Let's see if we can nudge that line over a little bit. Okay. You can move in position. You can raise it up if you like. But the whole idea here is we're trying to kind of create a little bit of a cut line so that we can kind of divide the upper portion from the lower portion. Okay? Again, you're going to have to probably tug on it a little bit. You might want to rotate it into position. You see how I've rotated it? And I think rotating actually kind of helped. Okay? And then we're going to kind of give it a little bit of convergence towards the back. And yeah, that looks pretty good. All right, so let's go ahead and click outside, and then what we're going to do also now that line's in position, we're going to go ahead and duplicate it one more time to get our highlight. So now we're on the main form cut line. Let's go ahead and right click and duplicate that layer, and let's rename it. Oops, we'll call it cut highlight. Boom. Okay, now again, it's still black, but let's go ahead and reverse that. And when we reverse it, we're going to go from black to white. So let's go to Image, Adjust, and let's go Invert. Okay, see how the black line went white? And then what we're going to do is we're going to take that line. Okay, you see, while that's still selected, okay, make sure this is deselected. You don't want to be dragging on your path. All right, now we're dragging on the cut line highlight. Look, isn't that neat? And then what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to, oops, sorry, let's drag that back where it was. And what you're going to need to do now is you're going to need to transform that line, okay, so that you can make it tuck underneath the black line. Right? So it looks kind of like a highlight. Now I may have to use the distortion tool or transform distort, because I do have a little bit of a situation right here that needs a little bit of more attention. Okay, so just kind of tug on that just a little bit. All right, that looks pretty good. Okay. Now it's not going to be perfect. There's an area here that really should be obscured, but I'm just going to do my best to just kind of tuck it in there. Okay. And just kind of nudge it. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay. Enough. All right. Let's click out. And now you have these two lines together. Okay, you can start to see, and if I zoom in, you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, you see the black line, and then you see the highlight. Okay. Now again, this is not absolutely perfect, but again, it's enough to kind of demonstrate the idea. All right. And let's go ahead and bring this back to the screen. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we're going to combine those last two layers, the highlight and the outline, so that we can trim it. All right. So let's go ahead and right-click the outline highlight and merge it down with the cut line. Okay. Now they're together. Right. If you can check by just turning them on and off. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now let's go back to the main outline, and by doing that we're going to go back to the path, and we're going to click on the main shape. Okay, so let's go ahead and pick on the main shape, and let's go ahead and activate that line. Okay, and once that's activated and you're happy with it, let's go back to the layer. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to be trimming off all this stuff on the outside. But to do it, you have to remember to go to Selection, and you want to invert your selection. So now you see the marching ants. They're not only on the around the object, but they're also on the outside perimeter of the picture plane. All right. And when you're ready, go ahead and hit Delete. Okay, hit your Delete button on your keyboard. Boom! Look at that, nicely cleaned off. Okay. Let's go ahead and click outside, and there's an example of how you can create objects in Photoshop by creating a shape and then filling it and dodge and burning it to create a form. And then once you're done, go ahead and repeat the use of the main path and stroke a line. And using that line, let's go ahead and create a highlight and a cut line, and then we combine the two and create a nice character detail, which will finish off the object. All right. So this concludes this demo on creating shape and form in Photoshop, and I'll follow up in my next video by coloring and adding even more detail. Okay. Hey, thanks for tuning in, guys. Bye.